When talking about famous admirals, the name Horatio Nelson typically comes to mind as the one that stands out above the rest. However, we in the US tend to overlook the achievements of another great naval commander, Yi Sun-shin, the most amazing man you've never heard of, and, as I will try to argue, the best admiral in all of history. Born in the Kingdom of Joseon, modern-day Korea, in 1545, Yi from a young age expressed a desire to join the military. This was looked down on by his noble family, who wanted him to become a scholar and join the Confucian bureaucracy that controlled the government of the time. After enlisting, he quickly rose through the ranks to the position of admiral, and was charged with defending the Korean shores from coastal marauders. Jealous superiors, however, accused the admiral of desertion, reduced him to the lowest rank, and tortured him as punishment. However, when released, Yi was somehow able to climb the ranks once more, becoming commander of the left Jeolla Naval District and gaining the position of admiral for the second time in 1590. But then, in 1592, war broke out. Japan, unified after a centuries-long civil war, was finally ready to expand and launched an invasion of mainland China. However, to accomplish this, they needed to go through the Korean peninsula and declared war on the Kingdom of Joseon. Korea, having had an unprecedented period of peace, quickly fell. The highly skilled Japanese troops overran the Korean forces and quickly pushed into the country, but one hope remained. Though the bulk of the navy had been sunk in the initial attack, Admiral Yi's fleet of 12 vessels remained, intact and ready for battle. Japanese forces, though the best in the East when it came to land warfare, were lacking in their naval abilities. Their ships were less sturdy than their Korean counterparts and could carry fewer cannon. The bulk of their firepower came from deck-mounted arquebusiers, with the preferred tactic being to board the enemy vessel and engage in melee combat. In contrast, the Joseon ships contained more advanced cannon technology. Then there was the turtle ship. Redesigned by Admiral Yi himself, the ship had a broad base to accommodate its 26 guns, and a bow-mounted cannon in the figurehead capable of releasing smoke onto the battlefield or simply firing at the enemy. Additionally, the ship had no top deck, the crew being completely enclosed under an iron-plated roof covered in spikes. This not only made the turtle ship nearly impossible to board, but also made it the first ever ironclad vessel ever produced. In battle, these turtle ships would move in and engage the enemy vessels directly, while the remaining boats would fire in a crane ring formation on the Japanese fleet. This, coupled with Admiral Yi's knowledge of the land and his use of baiting tactics to lure the enemy out of position, saw him win battle after battle, destroying dozens of the Japanese warships without losing a single one himself. With their supplies cut off, the invaders were forced to stop their advance into Korea, just as they had almost won. The Japanese leader, Hideyoshi, was furious and began hatching a plan to take out the admiral. Planting a double agent high in the Korean court, the Japanese were able to convince General Kim Yong-seo that an attack was coming from the south. Admiral Yi was ordered to intercept this fake fleet, but refused as he knew the area was full of sharp rocks that would tear his ships to pieces. His superiors, however, envious of the power he was gaining, charged him with insubordination and once more reduced him to the lowest rank and tortured him to near death. Admiral Wang Yun was instead sent to the southern shore. The results were disastrous. The Joseon fleet of 150 vessels and 30,000 men, built up by Yi over the course of the war, was ambushed by Japanese warships and nearly destroyed. Only 13 boats managed to flee the battle. Facing near certain defeat, the Korean government reinstated Admiral Yi Sun-shin and gave him complete control of the 13-ship, 200-man navy, none of which were turtle ships. Confident, on October 15, 1597, the Japanese diverted a flotilla of 333 warships to dispose of the tattered Joseon forces. But Yi had a plan. Using his fastest boat, he baited the fleet into the Straits of Myeongnyang, a turbulent area with rough waters, whirlpools, and an unusual current which reversed direction every 3 hours. This would keep the enemy from using their 25-to-1 numerical advantage effectively by limiting how many ships could safely enter. Admiral Yi fired on the Japanese with his cannons, staying out of range until the current reversed. At this point, the Japanese fleet, caught off guard, lost control of their vessels as they crashed into one another. Unable to maneuver, the Joseon forces were able to shell the enemy to pieces. In the end, the battle was a decisive win and a major turning point in the war, the Japanese fleet being decimated and Korean forces suffering the loss of only 10 sailors. Yi Sun-shin would eventually meet his end in the last battle of the war. On December 15, 1598, Korean and newly arrived Chinese reinforcements were attacked by the Japanese fleet in a desperate attempt to break through. Once more, Korean vessels decimated their forces, but as the Joseon ships ran them down, Admiral Yi was struck by a stray arquebus shot. Falling to the ground, he ordered his nephew Yi Wan to wear his armor and beat the war drum so as to not let the men lose morale. It wasn't until the Allied admiral went to congratulate him on the victory that anyone found out Yi Sun-shin was dead. Even though he died in the Battle of Noryang, Admiral Yi's legacy would continue to live on long after his death. His victory saw Japan go into a long period of isolation and would shape their naval doctrine for centuries to come. In total, Yi destroyed or captured over 1,000 Japanese ships in 23 battles, while losing a grand total of 0 himself, making this one of the most impressive track records in military history. At home, he was made a national hero, with shrines both official and unofficial being erected in his honor across the nation. To this day, he is renowned as one of, if not the most, important figures in Korean history, and one of the greatest military men to ever live.